this one?
You ready?
Ready.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Debate Night. With us tonight is Ben Gleib, I say that right?
Perfect.
Comedian
Kirk, right?
Extraordinaire, that's what they call me. We are
Kirk,
honored
right?
to be here tonight to be discussing all sorts of things, but specifically...
I'm going to be pausing it intermittently to talk. I'm not trying to not talk during it because sometimes my volume conflicts with their volume, so I'm trying to let you guys be able to hear it. You know what? I'm also going to turn the captions on. So, yeah. So we'll be able to fully get the debate and also get my interpretation on it, and we'll go ahead and we'll turn up the quality, and we'll get going.
We're going to be talking about abortion. The way it will work is very structured.
Started from the beginning.
Ready?
You got this one?
You ready?
Ready.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Debate Night. With us tonight is Ben Gleib, I say that right?
Perfect.
Comedian
Kirk, right?
Extraordinaire, that's what they call me.
Yep.
We are honored to be here tonight to be discussing...
His microphone is louder than his microphone, so that might be an issue, but we'll get it going. Don't worry.
all sorts of things, but specifically, we're going to be talking about abortion. The way it will work is very structured, and then we will enter into the laissez-faire and regulated portion of the conversation. Feel free to interrupt each other and have all sorts of fun. And so it'll be 2 minutes, 2 minutes, and then a series of 1 minute back and forth, and then off to the races. Opening statement will go to our guest. And we have here today on the set 2 people who thankfully were not aborted. So Ben, first statement for you.
When we're done with this debate, maybe you'll be questioning that statement.
About you.
About yourself.
Oh!
Thanks for having me. So this obviously pretty...
This guy's humor style is right up my alley. He's like such a dry, but like, you know, quick to the word kind of humor. That's I excel in that myself. So I game recognize game. Let's get into it though. Sorry.
Just issue. One that affects women around the country, of course, so I think it's best that 2 men are debating it. And it is actually, though, I say that sarcastically, but really it is because we all need to be able to support each other. And so I prepared some things to say at the beginning, just food for thought to go. I'd like to start by quoting a woman who wrote a very interesting article in the Washington Post. Very funny article, too. She said about some of the hypocrisies of this position being anti-choice. We believe in freedom. Your fist must stop where my nose starts. Except this one minor thing is obviously not a big deal, where you have to use your body to build another body from whole cloth, give it eyeballs and a circulatory system, undergo months and months of creeping bodily horror as your torso becomes unrecognizable to you. Familiar smells become off-putting, and then at the end of this process, you have a human being for whom you have to arrange a life. Compare that minor, barely palpable discomfort with the shocking, invasive horror of placing a strip of fabric across your nose when entering a business for 3 to 5 minutes. I shudder just imagining it. You can cough and breathe on whoever you like. It's a God-given right. Nothing worse as a human than to have to conceal your exquisite nose. We don't believe in restricting anyone from living as he chooses unless, of course, it's tangible minor things like who wants to vote or get abortions, or both of which are going to disproportionately, of course, impact people of color. But does that matter? I guess not. After all, it's your body, and of course, we view your autonomy as sacred and worthy of protection. It's just that if your body contains a uterus, it does not technically belong to you. It's more of a vacant lot for us to regulate as we see fit, and your neighbors to be encouraged to sue about.
Oh my God.
So, no matter our race,
I love
our
it.
gender, or our zip code, that's the end of the quote, this is me now, I believe we all should be able to come to a consensus that we can decide for ourselves whether and when to have children. But a handful of politicians today are trying to pass laws that destroy our freedoms, undermine our rights, and endanger...
He's basically saying no eugenics, which is funny because I got accused of being a eugenicist today, earlier in the chat. I'm like, what? But yeah, that's what he's talking about, and I fully agree.
...our futures. They make decisions that force people to struggle, to simply make ends meet or care for their families, and then shame and blame those that they force that into. And while they're busy fighting for our most basic rights, they hand the money that they take from our health care and our schools to our kids' futures and their corporate donors. We are in a democracy, not a theocracy, and it's nuts to allow government to think they can have a say in the choices a woman makes for her own body. And the last most important point is that by doing this, women will die. Young girls will die. Without safe places to go for abortions, they will still find a way to get. Our daughters, friends, nieces, teachers, mothers will die. Would you rather your daughter die, if you have a daughter one day, or make a safe choice for her own life, or decide to start a family for her own life? And if you choose die, how is that pro-life?
Thank you. Okay, so I think the entire kind of framing of this debate first needs to start with the type of privilege that we have. Both you and I have age privilege and size privilege to say that we believe that certain life should not exist. There's been 62 million abortions in America since the ruling of Roe versus Wade. So if you go to just a 7th grade textbook of what is a living being, or what is a being that has
here we
some
go.
sort of life, it will say that it's distinct and that it is whole. What makes a human life so incredibly unique and so magical is you do not need to encourage or tell that life to grow. It's not like a Corvette on an assembly line. Is that human life will develop naturally. This really kind of goes down to the question of when does human life begin? When does personhood begin? And the science of embryology says very clearly that life, human life, begins at conception.
No, it
Now,
doesn't.
speaking non-scientifically is a more...
See, he says speaking non-scientifically he's going to go on to say a bunch of non-scientific bullshit because he's right. In that regard, it's not scientific. Everything he's saying, embryologists agree that life starts at conception. No, they don't. And the only embryologists you'll find who, quote unquote, agree will be some super religious guy who probably shouldn't even be an embryologist. And I doubt very few, if any, of those people exist because they wouldn't be an embryologist, let's be honest. So, already getting into the ignorant shit, but let's, how far are we in? 434. Wow, didn't take them long.
Oral argument. We have overseen the slaughter of our fellow citizens over the last couple decades. This is a genocide, dare I say a Holocaust of our citizens that has occurred since Roe versus Wade. You talked about women. Well, just statistically, half of the 62 million abortions since Roe versus Wade are 31 million women that never had the chance to live. We have a luxury and a privilege that we are able to say we are old enough and developed enough. We're larger and we're older to say to another life right now that's in the womb,
We don't know
you have no right to exist.
Oh, man.
Briefly about the racial part of it, 900 black babies a day are aborted every single day in this country. We need to have a moral question here of when does life begin?
Do you start talking about black babies? Like, when did race get into this at all? Like, it's not even a race question. Like, how is pro-life and pro-choice, either way you side with it, how the hell is that anything connected to race? Like, he's really taken this argument in places I didn't expect because they're even more ignorant than I could even fathom someone could even be in this. Like, oh man, it'd be like someone talking about knife, like how many people go to the hospital and die due to knife wounds, and then someone says, well, people die from falling off a trampoline. It's like, yeah, they do. Sure, that doesn't apply to this at all. What the fuck are you talking about? It's about the same exact application here. It is completely wildly tangent from the actual topic.
What is a human being? If it is not your DNA, it is not your choice. And we, as a society of human beings, the least we can do is ask ourselves the question, are those people, are those persons in the womb worthy of protection? I would contend, absolutely. It is the most important moral question, I think, we as Americans and we in a free society can debate and discuss, that all life is worthy of protection.
Loves it. So lots of problems with what you said. Let me start picking them apart. First, as a Jewish person, I take large offense to comparing a life that never got to exist to a Holocaust which killed my family.
Right.
Who did get to exist and were snuffed out.
It's funny, I actually missed that part, but yeah, he did slightly just kind of just in there like, oh yeah, by the way, it's a lot of people that died calling the Holocaust. Like, whoa, holy shit. So that's disgusting to anyone who is of a Jewish faith. It's disgusting to anybody who knows what the Holocaust is. Like, Jesus, fuck.
To say those are even comparable is deeply offensive, but let's put that aside for a second. You said that the definition by your own words and by the science of embryology is that life is distinct. But an embryo is not distinct of the mother whom it is literally attached to and dependent on it for all nutrients and all survival. If it can survive in this world, if it can take a breath and go on to live, that is a distinct being, and you've got a great argument.
Right.
There. But without that, you simply do not. And you also contradicted yourself when you said that it is life, and then a minute later you said, never got the chance to live. A life had a chance to live if it's a life, right? So, in fact, it did not have a chance to live because it's not a life yet until it is born. Booyah, baby.
Okay, so you understand how dumb that argument is?
I don't understand.
That's like saying you never had a chance to live. I told you, right? What I'm saying is that
What?
the baby was alive.
He's mad because he got. He's mad. He's like, he's like, you know how ignorant that sounds. I'm like, what? He's just talking down to his stupid argument. Like he'll talk. This guy will talk to, or as intelligent as he needs to counterbalance his Charlie Kirk's argument. So it's like Charlie Kirk's arguments at like a first grade level. He's going to respond to you at a first grade level. You know what I mean? Like that's the way she rolls. That's how I would do it too.
And it got murdered in the womb, therefore it never had a chance to live past the point of it being alive. What I meant is that it never had a chance to live to a 5-year-old birthday, or a 15-year-old birthday,
The fuck?
or a 30-year-old birthday. Again,
Nice.
using age and size privilege that you have and I have, you say, you know what, we should be able to quash and quelch the 62 million human beings that never had a chance to live outside of the womb. Here's the basic syllogism that I bring as a pro-life advocate. It is always wrong to intentionally kill a human life. Abortion is intentionally killing a human life.
It's not a human life.
Therefore, abortion is morally wrong. And so you're
not-
going to be making an argument about choice, but some choices are wrong. For example, it's wrong to kill human beings. So you're going to have to make an argument to the audience why either A, this is not a human life, or B, why the mother has the right to murder her own child.
Sure. I'm going to choose the former of those options. Why I
Okay.
do not believe it is a life. And it's easy to make that point.
Mm-hmm.
But let me first say this. You are saying that it is a life that got snuffed out. And I don't mean to pull my age privilege on you, but I'm a little older than you. How old are you, Charlie?
27,
27. How come you didn't say 28?
because I'll be 28 in 2 weeks.
But if life begins at conception, you're 10 months older than that, and you actually are 28. Why don't you say 28?
Because that's the way we categorize birthdays.
That's the way you celebrate your life. That's the way we acknowledge life. That's the way we cut. The birthday begins when you are born.
Born?
If life
I
begins at
mean-
conception,
I'll let you finish.
if life,
That's an interesting point. I mean, like, it's not too salient, but I think it's a funny point. Like, yeah, that's true.
begins at conception, you would count your life from the moment that egg was fertilized. When you were the size of a poppy seed, not even a poppy seed, but after a couple days, a poppy seed size life that you're celebrating that great birthday. But you don't, because you don't actually believe that it is a human life. You do believe if you believe the science, it's quite obvious that it is the germ of a life. It's the beginning of a life. It's the beginning of a gestation of a life. If you're building a cake,
Right.
making a cake,
Is sperm
take
life
the
like a
ingredients.
sperm living?
When that cake is
Like,
done,
by
you got
their
a cake.
terms.
No one is saying it's a cake when it's ingredients that will become, after baking, a cake. And if you throw that cake away because it doesn't come out properly into ever being a cake, you don't say, man, you just threw away a perfectly good cake. No, you say, that cake never became a cake.
So I'm just curious, and we'll just kind of go into the.
I like eating summer cake, guy.
Are you
Please,
taking
sure,
back and forth?
sure.
So when does human life begin?
I think the human life begins at birth.
At birth.
Yes.
So it's okay to terminate a child right up to 9 months, full development, full birth, for full breath.
If it benefits the mother
No,
or
I don't-
something,
I
but
don't
I
personally
mean,
believe that, no.
right. But I mean, like, I'm saying there might be a case where that could be,
I
you
believe
know.
that a human life becomes one that we should do our damnedest to protect when it is viable outside of the womb. That's my belief.
So what do you mean viable? Like
when it can survive without the mother being connected to
so
feeding
that's
all nutrients
3
to
or
it.
4 years old. If you can hunt and gather on yourself, a 2-year-old is totally dependent on the mother. Should we be able to kill 2-year-olds?
You should have seen me as a 2-year-old. I was very crafty.
So how about 18 months?
Listen, some kids can survive on their own.
So your moral
Absolutely.
position is to be able to kill 6-month-olds because they have to breastfeed for their mother.
No. I'm simply saying when something is attached and dependent on the nutrients of life,
Like a
and dependent
6-month-old.
on the ability. No, a 6-month-old.
A 6-month-old can go hunt and gather and grow their own crops. And
Nobody can probably crawl around and find some crumbs on the ground. We live in a society
that's a
that
degree
has
of dependency of crumbs created by somebody else. You understand?
everything's dependency.
Your-
Hunting and gathering is dependent on
No.
there being animals
A
around.
15-year-old or a 20-year-old has the reason, the capacity, the maturity to be able to not be dependent on another human being.
I don't know if you've seen 15
So your moral position.
Whoa, the audio
is that
changed.
If you are dependent on another, you should be able to be terminated.
No.
Okay, so what is your moral position? Like, when does human life begin? That should be protected by the law.
I think human life should be protected by the law when it is born, because that is the only marker we all agree on. You yourself
why
have
when
said,
it's born?
well, I'll tell you why, because you yourself have said that, and it was a really well-made point that you made, and I'll quote you back to you. You said, we have a universal standard for when death
Yes.
is, but we do not have a universal standard for when life begins, and we should. And then you go on to say, I believe life begins at
I
conception.
do, yes.
But you then put your own personal belief at the end of that great quote. We do currently have a universal standard that we all agree when life begins at least, and that's from birth. Some believe it begins earlier, but not all. If you want the
if your
universal,
argument
but all
is to change how we do
If
birthdays,
it's not-
I'm totally on board for that.
Fair enough.
So I'm actually 28 years old.
Thank you. If you want someone changes Wikipedia. If you want the universal standard, you shall seek. The universal standard we currently have is from birth. So my very important point to you here is, if you want to work harder to get that universal standard to change and to convince the populace to get on board with redefining that, do so with argument, do so with fair, good faith argument to get the population on board and change the position of the country. Great, I'm all for you trying to do that. But until you do, the universal standard of when life begins is when somebody is born. Life doesn't exist without being alive in life, in the world. Life is life. Until you're in the world and have a consciousness and the ability to think and to experience and to develop, you are not
Tangible,
getting
yeah.
life.
So we'll just resume going back and forth. Sure. So
Life begins when life begins. That's the current definition of it, and its definition of words.
the science of embryology is when deoxyribonucleic acid is formed. So I just want to make sure we're clear.
That's the science of embryology, not of lifeology. That's when an embryo
You just
begins.
made up a word called lifeology.
And you made up a science of embryology as though that
I
defines
did not
birth.
make a science of embryology. It is a well-studied.
Embryology exists, but not in the application he's trying to apply. He's trying to apply embryology, the study of embryos, as like, oh, that means it's life. Like, no, just because they're studying embryos, they're determining what he said. They're determining when an embryo starts, but their disagreement is embryo. He is saying embryo isn't life yet, which I agree. He is saying embryo, even at the smallest form, is life, which I disagree. So, like, his application of this embryology analogy is completely wrong because it doesn't really apply to their argument. It's a completely different argument. It's a completely tangent argument. It's like embryology in itself is a study, yes, but he's trying to apply that study to a pro-life, pro-choice thing when embryology strictly just studies the embryo. It knows when the embryo is conceived. Their argument is, does that embryo constitute life? And that's where the argument lies. So, just trying to, I guess, separate their gobbledygook between this. This is like mixed up language between both of them and the study he's saying all together.
Yeah, but you're jumping and leaping that is what life is.
So do you
That's
think
an
when DNA is
embryo.
formed, it's okay just to eliminate
See, he just said what I was pretty much saying right there. Exactly.
it? It will never be formed again. It is distinct. It is unique.
Yeah.
It is whole. The science of embryology says it starts at conception.
Well, that's the science.
62 million human beings that were never able to
Yes,
get
and-
live outside of the womb.
And you're a genocidal murderer every time you masturbate, Charlie.
Why?
Because there is DNA in sperm,
No, but
and
the
every
DNA
head of
it
sperm
never
has
for-
DNA,
first of all-
and it is a distinct thing that's swimming around.
never formed-
and
it
there's
never
millions
fertilized
of
with
them,
an egg.
hundreds of millions.
Never
that you're
fertilized
killing
with an
in
egg.
a tissue and flushing down the toilet. Why?
It never fertilized with an egg. So let me ask
So
you a
what?
question.
Why is that your line?
If
Why is that the
That's what I
line?
said, when a unique DNA
That's what
is
you
formed
said.
with an egg, that's what the science of embryology says.
And the science of science also
The
says.
science of science.
The science of science
that,
also
you understand
says.
how dumb you sound,
The
right?
science of spermology also says
Spermology.
that sperm is alive.
I think Charlie Kirk's like letting the jokes go way above him. I mean, they're just elementary jokes because, Gleib is a comedian and Charlie Kirk's a faux pretend to be intellectual. So like he's trying to like low punch him by being like, you sound dumb, right? When it's like, well, Charlie Kirk already sounds dumb and he's just trying to make like small jokes. Like those particular terms shouldn't be taken serious as like definitely not as serious as Charlie Kirk's trying to make them in the scheme of things. Like him saying that doesn't add anything to the intellectual argument. Like it's just kind of, I don't know, low blows for no reason.
You deny sperm is alive.
Do I deny that sperm is alive? That is my own sperm, and your fixation with sperm is like creepy and kind of weird, honestly.
The fuck?
Wombs is creepy and kind of weird.
No,
So
actually-
Ah,
My moral position to protect the unborn is one that I wish you had.
I wish you had that same dedication to protect the born children in this world.
Well, I do. So let me ask you a question.
Well, I do.
No, it's
Sweet.
funding it in most terms.
The child's eyes and eyelids, nose and mouth and tongue have formed. Terminated. That's okay? Child's eyelids, nose, mouth, and tongue. Terminate.
Well, they're not real human ones, they're developing ones.
Got it. So electrical brain activity can be detected at 6 or 7 weeks and by the end of the 8th week. Terminate. Not a human.
It's not a human.
Got it. Okay. By 10 weeks after...
That is electrical activity. Okay, he oh my god, he doesn't know science at all, people. Not at all. He's saying there's electrical activity. Notice how it says electrical activity. It doesn't say brain activity, it doesn't say electrical brain activity. It says there's electrical activity. That's like people that say there's a heartbeat before 8 weeks or whatever, 6 weeks, whatever the fuck it is, when there's no heartbeat. There's a pulsation of a cluster of cells that will become a full formed heart. There's like oh my god, if going by that logic, they literally should think sperm is actual like a living thing. Like it's oh man, dude, it's just, it doesn't make any fucking sense. That's why the thing he's quoting itself doesn't say that exact terminology. So he's literally he keeps applying this real actual intellectual stuff to his non-intellectual, basically religious argument, and it's just dumb. Like, it doesn't apply. It's just, I wish sometimes I was in his Gleib's position, because I got a lot to say to him, like a lot, in fact. Actually, I am right now. I'm saying it. There, this is it.
It's also, by the way,
the
half
child
a
can
centimeter.
make bodily movements.
It's half a centimeter big at this
Right.
point, and
So
0.25 of an
I'm
ounce.
taller than you, so I should be able to terminate you.
No, because we're
Okay,
talking about
yeah.
scale. How tall are you?
I'm 6'4", much taller than you.
6'1".
So your
Not
moral
much.
argument is taller people should be able to terminate smaller people. Got it.
Never
From
said
his
that.
that's what you said. It's small, therefore you can terminate.
No, you're
See, Charlie Kirk likes to make arguments, like really macro ideas into like some real finite, tiny, like small-brained explanation, like some elementary school kid shit. Like, oh, you said big things are bigger than small things, so they could be murdered. Like, what the fuck? Like, oh my god, that's legit not what he said. Like, it don't take, like, even me at 5th grade would be like, that's not what he said. Like, I even if you're on Charlie Kirk's side, how the fuck does that, what? Actually jump on a point you find negative and with actual context, not just some fucking, like, it's just stupid. Like, goddamn, even Charlie Kirk's argument he's making he's not making it well. So it's bad.
As early as
things that
12
make it life,
weeks,
I'm listening to
and
things that don't.
certainly by 20 weeks, an unborn child can feel pain. Is it okay to terminate a child that can feel pain?
Pain, that is a disputed scientific fact.
Pain's relative, yes.
The ability to understand any sort of
The
concept is
comprehensive,
not pain.
yes.
They register what is happening, but it is not pain as though, oh man, this hurts.
Yeah,
So
but
if something can't register the pain.
their nervous system isn't even fully developed. How the fuck are they feeling what you literally would call pain? Like the actual term pain, they cannot feel it because the nervous system isn't fully developed. Next.
It's okay to torture something.
Correct, if it can't register the pain.
So if someone is on a ventilator,
He's really,
someone is in coma,
Charlie Kirk's trying to be smart here, but it's turning out stupid. But
Register the pain, then it's not registering the pain.
he's trying to falsely apply the term pain to
With
something.
abortions for people that found out they are pregnant with Down syndrome children.
Like nerve impulse shit.
I wouldn't do it.
Are you okay with? Is it morally okay for a society to embrace them?
I haven't thought about that. I think a lot of people with Down syndrome live beautiful lives.
So are they worthy of protection?
That's not a fair thing to ask.
Why?
Because I'm saying that fetuses with Down syndrome or fetuses without Down syndrome are not children. So you're going to a specific within the whole. All of it.
Very good.
It's not a human life.
Very
You're
good.
going specific.
So let me ask
That was very good. Gleib did a great job there. That's exactly what I would have said. Something to that degree. I would have said a little differently probably, but he's right because like he's literally trying to make an argument. He's trying to place this Down syndrome argument into something that Gleib said when Gleib is not. He's not arguing that at all. Like it's like another tangential argument that's not connected to the actual debate at hand, really, at all.
question. What species is it on the animal kingdom? If it's not a human life, what kind of life is it?
It's not a
It's not alive.
Well, you just said it was a human life.
No, I did not.
No, I didn't. What the fuck?
It is not.
So something with eyelids, nose, mouth, and a heartbeat is not alive?
So
What
it's-
is
It doesn't have any of those things fully. Not at all.
It's not alive. Is it dead?
Well, it's not been fertilized with an egg with a
Why
unique
is
and
fertilizing?
formed-
It is
because
unique.
according to science of embryology, that sperm, when it is formed with an egg, creates a new being of deoxyribonucleic acid that is formed, that is magical, unique, and distinct only to that moment, therefore worthy of conception, and begins the process of the development of a full human being, where the sperm, independent of that, does not have that. Again, your fixation with sperm, kind of weird.
My sperm is magical and unique and worthy of.
See, it's funny. It's funny. He's a funny man.
Said too, I got good service announcement for people that want to know that. You can't say my obsession with the first building block of life is weird, but your obsession with 6 hours later or 3 days later when it hits an egg is not weird.
But you admit there's something magical that happens once that sperm and egg meet.
No,
Human life-
not actual, not literal magic. Like, I hate when he uses that term magical. Like, goddamn, if he wants to talk about language, you sound stupid using that language. Using the term magical for conception of a child it's weird and stupid, and it's not literal. Like, he's trying to be all literal in this whole argument, but he's like, oh, it's magic. Like, okay, but boom, bada bit, bada ding, and there's a baby. Like, Jesus fuck, dude. Like, I hate it. Like, actually talk up. Like, be intellectual. Don't keep talking down. It's probably because his fucking audience is like that of like a fucking junior high. Oh my God. Like, what the fuck? Magical? Like, god damn, it's just such a corny thing. If you even, at the very least, it's fucking super corny and doesn't apply. What the fuck? He wants to argue all this terminology here. He's using fucking magical.
A new DNA is formed, where two beings become one. Don't you admit that?
I think it's as magical as the incredible thing that we are given sex drives that compel us to ejaculate and that compel women to drop an egg to have the potential to receive life. That is as equally magical. But you don't contend those are lives. You don't think someone having a period is
Let me ask you a
murder,
question.
and you don't think sperm ejaculation is murder.
So since you're so bizarrely fascinated with sperm,
You're bizarrely fascinated with women's bodies, even though you're not a woman.
I am very fascinated in saving babies' lives. I will not stop.
They're not babies.
They're not babies. They're not babies. God damn it. Stop, Charlie.
Since you're fixated on sperm, a sperm, absent meeting an egg, does what?
It dies.
Once a sperm meets an egg, uninterrupted from abortion interference, does what?
Oftentimes, it will fertilize it. Obviously, not always.
And live.
No! No! Why does he do this? He keeps like he keeps starting ideas that sound right. He's like, yeah, and then once it hits the egg, what to do? It starts to fertilize it, and it becomes life. Like, no, stop! That part's you keep adding. He keeps adding like an extra half a sentence. I fucking hate it. Stop.
So your argument of your kind of creepy fixation with sperm, which is that the sperm, absent the fertilization of the egg,
I want to keep saying
does
creepy
not
fixation on
continue
sperm
to
so your
grow,
followers can
but
message
once
that to
the
me.
sperm
You have a creepy fixation
meets
with
with
controlling
eggs,
women's bodies. So stop
it
that
turns
phrase you
into
want me to
a
listen
human
to.
life
Stop that
and
phrase.
grows
If I'm making a
and
stop,
develops.
if I'm making
You're
a
the one
Charlie,
that wants to interfere and
Charlie,
destroy
I'm not
a
hearing
baby
this point because if
to
you're
be
going
able
to
to grow.
if you want to make a scientific argument,
I have.
then don't make a stupid point over and over again about part of that scientific
No, I'm
argument.
just clarifying the lack of wisdom in your argument.
Lack of
where
wisdom
you say
how?
sperm independent of meeting an egg does what?
It dies if it
So
doesn't.
once the sperm meets the egg, uninterfered by an abortionist.
Just because something dies doesn't mean it was living.
It dies. And an
No,
egg.
it lives. A sperm meeting an
Oh, a
egg,
sperm meeting an egg, right.
uninterfered with an abortionist that does what?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
But when it does develop, it
When it develops fully, it's life.
Becomes a life. When it's
It becomes a life. The death cycle's instant. Okay, see, okay, I get it now. I get it. Here's an easy way to debunk this. The death cycle to that being is instantaneous. You die like with instant, like, way quicker than it takes to conceive a full pregnancy into life. Like, it takes literal months. So, like, trying to conflate the instant point of conception to death is ridiculous because death is instant. So even conflating like the point of like when sperm meets egg, it's like, okay, so we're arguing time frames to like something that like is death is quicker than anything life related will ever be. Like, for damn sure. Like, what? Death is instant. If anything you take from this fucking debate, from anything that either of these men say, death is instant and death will always be, and it's inevitable. And just because something dies, and death is just a term. Like, just because something quote unquote dies doesn't mean it was once alive. Things die that people don't even think are alive. Some people don't consider trees alive. Some of them I consider trees alive to some degree, but they can die, like, and they're not actually living by the standards that either of these men are talking about. So really, it's like we're really arguing this is a philosophical argument now we're really having. Like, we're kind of went from the social side more to the philosophical side, and now we're talking Plato and Socrates.
Miscarriage or ectopic pregnancy, it doesn't lead to those things, and then abortions can, or not even abortions, DNC procedures can help clear that out so the woman can go on to have a family in the future. Let me ask you a question. You're so against abortion and protecting lives.
And I'm very pro-baby.
But you are okay with abortion.
They're not
if it
babies.
saves a woman's life. Why?
So actually, I will clarify that. That's so exceedingly rare. And in fact,
Great.
over 1,000 OBGYNs, nurses, and neonatologists signed a declaration stating, quote, as experienced practitioners and researchers in gynecology, we affirm that direct abortion, the purposeful destruction of an unborn child, is almost never medically necessary to save the life of a woman. So in the extraordinarily rare case, which is so hard to find and pinpoint,
well, it's not so hard to find. It happens, and there's many.
Very rare. Well, these
millions
1,000
of documented cases.
OBGYNs say no.
That's great, and there's a lot that say yes, and it happens, and you're aware it happens. So try not to use a distracting statistic.
Well,
you're okay with it in those rare instances. Why?
Because there could be other children in the future that
Right.
could be born.
That's my whole argument.
However,
if a woman's
it's
not ready to have a child now, there could be other children in the future when they are ready to raise them successfully in life.
I will correct my own previous statement by saying I don't even think it's ever medically necessary. Because these 1,000 OBGYNs and nurses have said you can have cesarean sections. That's not to say there might not be necessary medical treatments, but to use abortion as the medical necessary treatment, I think is almost never the case whatsoever. Case closed.
No, you can't say case closed.
Well, I'm going to trust the 1,000 OBGYNs.
Who say it's hard to pinpoint and it's rare, but
do
it
not
happens.
trust the 1,000 OBGYNs.
I don't know who they are. There's millions of OBGYNs out there.
I mean, realistically, those could
And
be cherry picked.
Others say that I'm right.
Let me ask you a question. You retweet Planned Parenthood quite a lot.
Sure.
What do you have to say about the Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger, who's a eugenicist, who says we don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the black population? Does that bother that Planned Parenthood is a eugenicist organization?
I've never heard that quote.
How about this one?
I
How
doubt
about
the authenticity of that quote, but if it's true, I obviously condemn that quote.
how about this one from
Don't support it.
Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger? Human beings. Our goal is to eliminate human beings who never should have been born.
These are all
at
straw
Birth
man.
control is nothing more
This is
than
all
a
straw
female
manning.
outfit. Are you comfortable associating yourself?
You ever heard of Peyton Manning? This is straw manning.
Myself with Genesis or that quote, if that answers your question.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure. Because
Awesome.
I got plenty for you.
Awesome. How many children do you have?
None yet.
Why?
Well, I got married in May, so it's a work in progress.
So you're working on having kids soon. Why haven't you adopted yet? Are you going to adopt kids
Well,
that
I'm
are in
married.
need of help?
So I do kind of live a busy life. But I
Well,
would love to
busy
adopt.
life.
Actually, it's on the table.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, he ain't got
Someone's
to.
gonna adopt soon. Excellent.
He lives a busy life if he has kids or even adopts kids. He won't raise them. He'll have fucking a nanny do it or someone fucking he pays money to do it. Like, he ain't gonna raise his actual kids. You kidding? Charlie Kirk raise kids? He's too busy. he's too busy doing real intelligent stuff, like making real smart arguments.
Tails. 8 weeks an embryo has tails. Do humans have tails, Charlie?
I'm sorry, what?
Serious question. Do human beings have tails?
I'm not exactly sure the essence of the
Do
question.
human beings have tails? Do you have a tail?
You know, I have never met anyone with a tail. I'm not exactly sure the essence.
Exactly. But fetuses have tails. Kind of proves that at that phase they are not a human being. They got tails. Humans don't have tails. We're not dinosaurs. Let me even show you a photo if I may, okay? Do you truly, in your heart of hearts, truly believe that this is a human being? This,
Without a doubt.
without a doubt,
Yes.
this is a dolphin fetus.
So let me.
Without a doubt, a dolphin fetus is a human being. This,
The old bait and switch. He got him. He definitely didn't lead him. He's like, you mean to tell me that this is a human fetus? He doesn't lead him at all. He doesn't lead. Oh, damn. That's fucking funny.
a human fetus, look how similar they look. But
Kirk looks so fucking like stupefied too. He's like, fuck, he got me. Dude, he knows. He knows. He got God. It's okay, dude. It happens. He got hosed.
quite different. Dolphin. You just confirmed that a dolphin, in life, do you confuse dolphins for human babies often?
So let me
You
ask
go to
you a question.
SeaWorld and you're like, someone's got human babies in that aquarium. Get the human babies out of the aquarium.
Well, you labeled it as a human fetus.
No,
So
I
you
did
that-
not.
No, he didn't.
No, I did not. I didn't label it as anything. Doesn't say human fetus on
Let
there.
me ask you a question then. So let's hold up those two pictures again.
Sure.
Is there a moral difference between the dolphin and the baby?
At this stage, no.
No,
You just confirmed that.
No, let me ask you. Human and a dolphin. Is it okay to kill one and not the other? Is there a difference morally between a human and a dolphin?
I don't like to kill dolphins, but when
Do
they're
you
living,
like to kill babies?
no, I don't. And when they're living, I certainly am not in favor
Wait,
of killing
so
either, but obviously I protect a human over a dolphin.
Hold up. Is that not alive?
No.
No, it is not alive.
Well, how is it able to have a heartbeat?
It's attached
It
to
doesn't.
a live being called a woman.
God damn it, I just said this earlier. It doesn't have a fucking heartbeat. It's got a cluster pulse of fucking impulses between fucking nerves, or developing nerves, that eventually, after months and months, will develop into a full heart. Yes, great, amazing. That's like, it's, once again, that's, might as well be saying sperm is a literal living thing too then.
Wait, so
Who's the
it
mother?
doesn't have a heartbeat?
It moves with locomotion. That's something that humans exhibit. And babies exhibit. It's like, Jesus, these arguments are getting like more and more elementary, if you ask me.
No, it doesn't have a true heartbeat.
Oh, yes, it does.
At some point it does.
22 days after
There we
conception,
go.
the child's heart begins to
There we go. That's exactly right. Not 20, whatever the fuck gobbledygook he's talking about is bullshit. He's conflating some fucking medical goddamn journal study that he's trying to say says something that it doesn't say. He does this a lot. Charlie Kirk does that all the fucking time. All the time. Like every single time he ever debates, he does it at least once, if not multiple times. It's frustrating trying to actually like decipher what actual facts he's saying, which is very few, from all the stuff he's just conflating. It's annoying as fuck. I hate it. One of the biggest flaws in any debate is that, really, is just using a study that says one thing and trying to say it says a completely different thing out of context. It's annoying as fuck.
That is also disputed science and
At
not correct.
just 6 weeks, the child's eyes and eyelids, nose and mouth and tongue are formed. Not
No,
alive?
it is not a heartbeat at 22 weeks.
So, wait, hold on. It's either dead or alive. Which one is it?
That is not true. It is becoming...
Pick one.
It's neither.
Oh,
It's neither. It's not, clearly not dead, but it's not fully alive. It is not alive. It is not dead. That is I guess that's the magic of conception. There you go, Charlie. That's your magic you're speaking of. It's not dead or alive. It's magic. Ooh.
alive. It is not alive.
So you were once dead?
You
before
defined
were
life
alive?
as distinct. It's not distinct. It's attached
It's totally
to somebody
distinct.
feeding it. Distinct means on its own.
No,
Is it not
doesn't.
attached to its mother?
That's a different, that's autonomous. not
Distinct is the same.
Distinct means it has its own DNA, its own composition.
That's the definition of the word distinct, is its own DNA and composition.
Well, that's the
Incorrect.
So it is unique.
So is sperm, and so is eggs, and so is
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
That
I
doesn't
said
mean
this shit earlier. I love
can
it.
or can't kill
Let
them
me
or
ask
put them
you
in
a question.
aquariums.
There's 1 million abortions every single year. Do you think that's too many or not enough?
I think it's whatever the mother decides with her own family is the right move for their life, and it's none of our damn business.
So if a mother murders an 18-month-old, is that okay?
No, it's not a human being. It's an
So
autonomous
it becomes a human being the moment it comes out of the womb.
Right. When
So
it
what
can
do you say about how
breathe.
the youngest pregnancy ever done, 22 weeks and 1 day, that baby is now 1 year old? Was that not a human being when it was delivered by C-section?
I don't follow. Say that again.
What?
So last year, the youngest ever human being on record was delivered at 22 weeks and 1 day. That baby is now 1 year old
Okay.
since the time
Okay.
of that birth.
This is now a living baby. You're correct.
That's okay. So as soon as it comes out of the womb, it is living.
Yes.
That is correct. If it's alive when it comes out of the womb.
Yeah, it could be
No.
stillborn.
Right, a lot of
Yeah.
babies die at childbirth. That's why you don't know
Well,
until
not a
they're
lot
born.
of babies die at
Yeah,
childbirth.
a lot.
Yeah, they do.
A lot. Can someone Google that for me?
Yeah.
Can you please Google
Many.
how many babies die at childbirth?
Millions and millions of babies die from at childbirth, like stillborn and otherwise. Like, goddamn, like, and look at his face. He looks so like smug, like, yo, yeah, I know I'm right. Like, it might be like less than 1% of the human population, but millions of people is still, or what would have been millions of people from the point of coming out of the birth canal. Like, what the fuck? And he's the one arguing the fucking he's the one arguing the pro-life. He's the one that's pro-life. It's like almost like a switch when it comes to that point, like a complete womb.
We have some of the lowest childbirth mortality rates in the
No,
world,
we
thankfully.
Yeah.
do not. We have some-
And having the lowest of that is still high. Like if even like 100,000 to be babies. I'm not gonna say babies because that's gonna feed into his argument. It's to be babies until they come out and emerge alive and to spank and on the cry and all that. Even if it's 100,000, that is a lot. That is a fucking shocking number. Like, come on now. That's not a lot. Silly.
We have some of the highest. United States infant mortality rate places us 16th among the nations of the world.
How many nations
Thousands
are
of
there?
infants die each year because of inadequate medical care that you often vote against and don't support.
I'm not elected official.
You support things and you have the influence of millions. You don't have a vote. Are you suppressing your own vote now too, or just others?
And I vote in Congress.
I'm saying that you vote in elections and you decide who goes to Congress, do you not? And do you not support bills or not support bills based on your massive influence?
I know
think you do.
you're getting really worked up.
No, I'm not.
So let me ask you a question.
Also, we rank 33 out of 36 in the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development Nations, OECD nations, ranked by U.S. News and World Report for prenatal and early childhood care, that you often do not support. In fact, recently, when Biden suggested just $225 billion to support children more in the early years of their lives, you went against it and said, oh, capping it, while theoretically you paid empty lip service to it and said, well, theoretically it's a good idea. $225 billion is so expensive, and it caps the amount they can spend on their children at 7% of income a year, and by doing that, there's no incentives then for them to seek cost-effective care. When you had no problem with Donald Trump spending $8 trillion, giving trillions and trillions of tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires, and raising the national debt to $27 trillion. No issue with that. But helping the kids that you care about so much, the babies you care about so much, that you want to force women to give birth to them, and then they can go themselves once they're born because you don't give a shit, and you vote against it constantly. Bravo! What a hill to die on.
I have no idea what the heck you're talking
about. You don't? Well, you went on the record about it. That's pretty incredible. You don't know what I'm talking about.
One of your
I got a lot of cards.
Let's talk about the Holocaust that's happening in our country. So,
say Holocaust again, you're gonna have a problem with me because again, my family died in that. Remember?
Let's dive right into that. So there's a Holocaust happening in our country of 1 million abortions a year of our fellow countrymen being slaughtered. So the Holocaust that's occurring, administered by Planned Parenthood, has a disproportionate impact in the black community. In Texas, 70% of all abortions are minorities, and 37% of all abortions are black. Why are you okay with that?
Why are you okay with dictating what the black community should do? Now Charlie Kirk should decide what the black community does?
Actually, I want more black people. Do you want less
You
or more
should
black
tell
people?
them how many babies they should have?
I want to protect all black babies.
Except with funding.
So here's the record.
Except with helping them have easier lives.
You want less black children? I want more black children. That would be a racist position.
Oh no, you're the racist position. I want the exact number of black children that the black communities decide that they want, and black mothers decide they want to give birth to, and not force them to do so, and especially not force them to do so, and then not provide any of the funding necessary to lift them up out of oftentimes poverty situations. Oftentimes you are forcing people to not only then give birth to babies they don't want, but then you're sliding them further into poverty. It costs about $1 million over the course of a lifetime of a child to raise a child. And it's easy for you to say you're a trust fund baby who was born rich. It's easy for you to say when you've never had to struggle for money. These people are born in difficult circumstances. They get pregnant.
Sorry about that noise if you heard it, but yeah, dude, Charlie Kirk he's never had to fucking fight for money or earn any kind of money. That's why he's able to have such a big show and have such the fucking clout he does for just pretty much doing nothing. I don't even think he's actually educated in this topic, or I mean, not even this topic. He's definitely not educated in this topic. I don't think he's educated in any particular field even. Like, it's kind of, I'm more educated, I believe, than Charlie Kirk.
Accidentally, or at the hands of an abuser, the hands of a rapist, the hands of a mistake when they were 16. Maybe it's their third child and their husband and them had sex and accidentally got pregnant, and you're forcing them to have it and sticking them further and further in poverty with no effort and no funding to help lift them out of that. But you care so much about babies that you think are dolphins.